BBOR, Black Box Online Radio, coming to you from West Virginia. Today we're going to be talking all about Bohemian Grove. This is a subject that we've never covered before on the channel, and the reason I got back into this one was, back in 2017, I first started the Alex Jones documentary, The Dark Secrets Inside Bohemian Grove, and it's available here on YouTube. I watched about 20 minutes of it in 2017, and for some reason, I don't even really remember how I started clicking on it, I finally finished it here in 2020. It only took me 3 years. I mean, as I mentioned, I'd only watched about 20 minutes to kind of, just sort of getting your feet wet, and then I finished that one. And then I felt that still a little bit unsatisfied, and I wanted to listen to a variety of other sources, and also pulled up some things in print. So let's have a little bit of a discussion about Bohemian Grove, perhaps one of the largest places for networking with the global elite circles, as well as just many high-profile individuals congregating together. Definitely a concentration of wealth and concentration of power. If we can have the most general description of Bohemian Grove, we would say that Bohemian Grove is a restricted 2,700-acre campground at 20601 Bohemian Avenue in Monte Rio, California, and belonging to a private San Francisco-based gentlemen's club known as the Bohemian Club. These events that we've been talking about have an estimated attendance of 2,500 people, and this was established in 1878. Thank you, Google. And that's just from, put in Bohemian Grove, that'll be the description that you get. Now, in addition to watching Alex Jones's documentary, which provided a very clear depiction of one of the rituals performed at Bohemian Grove, known as the cremation of care, where people act out a variant of a stage play. And if I recall from reading in the past, they actually performed the stage play in honor of a Canaanite deity, like from the land of Canaan, Canaanite. But many of the people in the comments section were talking about things such as the occult, talking about Satanism, and Alex Jones would go on to kind of put George Bush in some black robes and be like, this is what George Bush really dresses like, and shouting at people on the streets. And what really is going on? What do we make of all this? Because another source that I found was something called the Unbelievable Podcast. Unbelievable. I had never listened to this one before. And, I mean, I swear the guys were just, passing papers back and forth through the whole time. It sounded like a newspaper was in the wind in the background of their show. But one of the people on the show was a guest, and he had worked at Bohemian Grove previously. Because when you have this event with 2,500 people, one of the things that is rarely talked about is that they are going to have staffers. They're going to have people who are doing the serving and people who are doing the organizing. And he says, just some guy on a podcast, you don't even see who he is, right? He just says that he was a staffer at Bohemian Grove. And I thought that it was going to be just something where he's just going to go off the rails. He's just going to start talking about witnessing satanic stuff and say that David Rockefeller drinks pig blood when no one's looking. I thought he was going to go down that pathway, but in reality, it sounded much more balanced, almost to the point of where it became plausible. And, I mean, there are a few ways we got to break this thing down. First and foremost, what is with all of these people saying that there's an enormous amount of occult rituals going on with the global elites? You hear this from loads of people. You hear it from Alex Jones. We talked about it a little bit with the Kevin Shipp lectures back when we did our upload on that. And even when we were discussing some other things like Pizzagate, because I mentioned before that I'm a big fan of the Lord and Arts channel, and they did an upload on Pizzagate, and the comment section was just filled with people saying, you're completely wrong, satanic cults have infiltrated the United States government for ages, you don't know what you're talking about. And I was like, that was my first real exposure to this subject. And I was like, what are these people crazy? But it's actually a very commonly held belief that if it's not satanic cults, you could say Luciferian cults, the belief that you liberate humanity by destroying it, that type of influence is left on civilization, and just conducting various rituals. But the guy from the Unbelievable podcast really just said that Bohemian Grove isn't so much about people conducting bizarre occult rituals. He was like, it's a bunch of very rich and powerful men, only men, and they are getting drunk in the woods together for a while. And that's pretty much was his description of it. That's what I meant when I said that it was somewhat more balanced. And a lot of people really were just completely attacking that. They're like, this must be fake, this must be scripted. And I think a big reason for that is they find it more entertaining to believe some of the more satanic descriptions of Bohemian Grove. And I believe there's a reason why Richard Nixon absolutely condemned it. And I was listening to this one sort of narrated segment. It's actually a Wikipedia, but with a narration. And they said that Richard Nixon described it as foggy. And I was like, foggy? Like clouds that are really low? What are you talking about? But it also had the subtitles as the narrator would read along in one of those computer voices. And you could see that it didn't say foggy. They probably just said it that way on purpose because forgive my language, please forgive me, but he described it as faggy, and I was like, oh, tricky dick. But, like, in all reality, I think that's one of the reasons why he condemned it. Richard Nixon was someone that just absolutely did not like that type of stuff. I mean, he also hated playing golf. He said it was a waste of time. Bohemian Grove is a waste of time. Things like that. I mean, so what you can really see is you do have lots of very powerful individuals coming together. They even put in a helicopter pad once so some guy could fly in from the Middle East and, land his helicopter in Bohemian Grove. Lots of money and lots of power coming together. Large concentrations of wealth, large concentrations of power. I can't have, it almost seems impossible that there wouldn't be some sort of networking going on that would actually try to sway political persuasion to a particular place. It almost is beyond belief that this would be just okay, no politics or anything is going to be discussed. I mean, when you have that many powerful people, we're talking about 2,500 individuals, and it's not just people like Rockefeller or Henry Kissinger or Richard Nixon or any of the presidents, and it's not only people like that. Ronald Reagan was also an attendee of Bohemian Grove. And on the Unbelievable podcast, they also said that it was one of the heirs to the Quaker Oats fortune. I mean, it's just very, very obscure things that you wouldn't think about too much. CEOs, business people, heirs, people who have lots of money and lots of power from older generations. But how do we know what's really going on? Do we just have one person's testimony about how he didn't witness any satanic rituals? Well, what I would say is a very big thing that is discussed very frequently in all of the pieces that I've seen is that there's lots of prostitution. Alex Jones was just like, and he said this in the interview that he did with RT about Bohemian Grove, that they fill the hotels in the nearby town with male prostitutes and female prostitutes. But remember, we said no women, but apparently they fill the hotels with male prostitutes and female prostitutes. And the guy from Unbelievable who worked there, he didn't deny that. He kind of denied the whole satanic ritual thing, but he didn't deny the prostitute thing. He's like, yeah, they had this bunker where they kept the Asian male prostitutes. And I was just like, is this just something where a bunch of rich and powerful people want to get together, get drunk in the woods, and then just start having sex with, Asian male prostitutes? Perhaps. I mean, no, I'm not going to lie to you. It's always been a little bit difficult for me to accept the concept of the satanic rituals that are involved with the global elites. I can get that a bunch of people want to get very intoxicated and have intercourse and they don't mind paying for it because they're super rich. But when you want to talk about the specific things that they're going on, I think the Luciferianism is much more abstract. It's more about how they are destroying. It's about like they're destroying things that are associated with humanity, and they believe that they have the right to, but simply because they want to have the power. And we've covered this in a much larger thing. It's very hard to say in just about one sentence. So I think that is much more abstract. If there's any sort of Luciferian or satanic discussion to be had, I think that it's not exactly as literal as people are making it out to be. And things like the cremation of care, which you can see the videos of it, they're performing this ritual. That seems something that is much more just like a tradition. Many societies conduct traditions. Many societies have their own rituals. And many societies have things that aren't super deep. I mean, like, it's just a ritual. It's symbolic. It's something that has been done for a bazillion years, so they keep on doing it. And it doesn't mean that just because just because people are participating in a ritual to a Canaanite deity, it doesn't mean that everybody is actually believing that this, giant owl statue, this giant great horned owl, is actually a deity that they genuinely worship. We also have to say, I was really trying to find the segment about the guy who left InfoWars, a former InfoWars employee that came out and said that they were going to be doing a segment on Bohemian Grove. Alex Jones was going to do a segment on Bohemian Grove, and the guy said to Alex Jones, "Why are we still talking about that? You know there's nothing there." And Alex Jones famously said, "Well, don't tell my audience that." That's the guy's testimony, and I tried to find that little clip. It was something that I read about 3 years ago. I couldn't find his exact name, but I remember it sounded kind of French. There's nothing there, but don't tell my audience that. So it's like, I definitely think that I don't believe that perhaps Alex Jones even believed that there was anything really tied to the satanic and the occult. I think he just thought it was a better story. He thought it was a better radio bit and it was better fuel for the documentary. And to be honest, I probably wouldn't have believed a lot of the things that Alex Jones had put out if he hadn't interviewed David Gergen in the street, and they had, just a whole conversation about Bohemian Grove and how Alex Jones filmed the cremation of Care, and I was like, oh wow, I mean, like, okay, all of that's real, all of that's legit, all of that actually happened. And according to Alex Jones, they put up the no trespassing signs in Bohemian Grove after they found out that it had been infiltrated by Jones and his crew and the other people that were working on the documentary. It was kind of like a joint venture function, right? So the thing that we would just want to say about this is a theory that I think a lot of people really want to go crazy with. There are elite people that are doing some nasty things. They're doing some crazy things. But I really think the satanic ritual thing and a lot of these conspiracy theories is blown out of proportion. And I also think it's a misinterpretation and a misrepresentation, which is really just about how that the whole concept of you liberate humanity by destroying it, that's kind of their focus. And that's what they're striving toward, as well as just the concept of they want to be the ones with the power, and they will do anything to keep power. But in reality, as the guy said on the Unbelievable podcast, it's like, no matter what group of people you have, they're going to act the same. They're going to want to get drunk, and they're going to do obscene things and make crude jokes and stuff. That's what the majority of what was going on at Bohemian Grove. Not to mention they have their own traditions and such. So like the performances such as the cremation of Care. So I believe that a lot of people really want to blow this out of proportion and talk about things like satanic rituals. But if you want to say, though, that there must be some sort of major political networking where very rich and powerful people are trying to rig the system to their own advantage, it would have to be if you have 2,500 political, social, and economic elites together. Something like that must be taking place. But what do you think? What do you think about Bohemian Grove? I'm going to kind of leave it at there. I guess I've said my 2 cents on everything. I would love to hear any comments that you have, and if you have anything to say, you can drop a comment below, and let's challenge this subject. If you think that I'm completely wrong and that Bohemian Grove is a giant satanic Luciferian mess, please feel free to keep discussing it, and I want to hear from you. And if you think, though, that this is just something that has been blown out of proportion by the conspiracy theory media, I want to hear your comment too. If you like this upload, you can hit the like button. If you haven't subscribed already, feel free to subscribe. And until next time.